Welcome to the AIOps Evolution Weekly broadcast. This series features discourse on topics pertinent to the C-level conversation revolving the integration of artificial intelligence into the ever-evolving IT operations landscape. Discover trends and actionable tips for digital transformation, as well as the latest news on how AIOps is transforming business and government operations to create flow in their organization. And don't stay in the dark on the latest industry news. Join the AIOps Evolution community to stay connected and subscribe to the show at AIOpsevolution.com. Now, let's join our hosts, Sean McDermott and Bill Driscoll, IT thought leaders, visionaries, and the voices on the other end of the mic for the latest episode of AIOps Evolution Weekly.
Welcome, everybody, to the AIOps Evolution Weekly broadcast. I'm your host, Sean McDermott, and my co-host, Bill. Bill, how you doing today? How was your week?
Yeah, doing well, Sean. How about yourself? It was a pretty good week.
Yeah,
Busy.
It was a pretty good week, I have to say. So Can't complain. So you want to talk a little AIOps before the weekend?
That sounds like a plan. What we
Good.
do every week.
As we do every week. Yeah, I make it sound special, but we do it every week.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of the point of the show, right? AIOps Weekly.
Right.
So this week, so you and I have been talking for a while, right? And trying to figure out, what's relevant conversation and things that we should be talking about. So there's 10 areas that we see as kind of key components of the AIOps area, AIOps strategy. And so I decided that we should start looking at these 10 areas and go a little bit more detail in each one of our episodes. So I'm thinking that this week we should start off with service management. How does that sound?
Nope. Sounds like a good area. Kind of where it all starts, right?
Where it all starts. So a couple articles that I came across, and I know you came across some too. Mm-hmm. So the first one is called How AI Will Transform IT Service Management by Esther, Sheen. And so this is an interesting one because she interviews a number of people in one from Pink Elephant, another one from EMA, a guy named Dennis Strauss that's a friend of mine. So shout out to Dennis. I've known Dennis for, 15 years. And a couple other people, like someone from Pink Elephant, or did I say that already?
Yeah,
but
you said that one. Yeah.
I said that one. So what we're really talking about is the introduction of AI into the IT service management world. And we've talked about this on this show several times, and I consider it AIOps because I really do consider service management in the IT operations space, even though this article will make the case that it's not, and it's actually moving more into the enterprise, which don't necessarily disagree with either. But in this article, it talks about, really one of the big themes it talks about here is automation, right? Mm-hmm. And we've talked about this a lot, and I think we're going to have a whole episode on automation. But the idea that one of the people she interviewed says that ITSM has been kind of out of favor lately, and I don't know if I really agree with that because we certainly do a lot of work around service management work, but that it's coming back into the favor, right, with the introduction of AI and the introduction of more customer-facing and customer experience. So, Did you get a chance to see this article?
Yeah, I did. It's a few, comments I'll make to some of what you said. I think, she did say as service management's fallen out of favor the past few years. I do think if you have an operational focus, we hear about DevOps, we hear about site reliability engineering, we hear about containers and microservices and a lot of other areas of operations. And when you talk about IT service management, people are like, well, isn't that idle? Wasn't that around since the 90s? And so I think people think if you're in that space, it's a little bit old, it's dated, it's just tickets, incident workflows. And so in a lot of ways, while it's maybe not fallen out of favor, it's sort of been static. It's been the way it is for a long time. And I think a lot of the AI investments or things we're talking about is like anomaly detection and dynamic thresholding and event correlation and clustering more around how do DevOps SREs deal with all of this, or NOCs. But I think she's saying that AI is now being introduced in a big way to the front end, the service desk, the help center, the call center, the ones that are handling requests or incidents, or kind of in between the infrastructure and the front end. And I think that new introduction of that new technology is really going to bring forth sort of a transformation as to how the service desk kind of side of ITSM takes place. So I think, yeah, go ahead, Sean.
I think you bring up a really good point, and I'll concede on that. And that is, when we talk about AIOps, and a lot of the vendors that I talk to around AIOps, who are mostly kind of focused on event correlation, the event and incident management side, and root cause analysis and things like that, which we've talked about that use case. They do talk about, we integrate into the service desk. And when you dig deeper into it, it's like, well, we'll open up tickets in the service desk. So yeah, I can see that conversation is relatively boring, right? Systems have been opening tickets in service desks for decades. So, but yeah, I guess I take a little bit broader view. I think I take a more of a view of what she's talking about, and I think that there's a lot of really interesting things going on in the service desk. And one of the things they talk about really is kind of, I think, is a major focus of this article theme is around automation, right? And to me, I think that's ultimately where AI is going to really shine in the ITSM world, is because you're still going to have tickets, you're still going to have information in there and customer information, but the ability now to use that information as the next point of automating some type of automating the prediction of what the issue should be, and then automating that and allowing AI to essentially start doing that is really one of the key things. So I think without adding automation into the conversation around ITSM, really ITSM is just kind of the same old thing that we've been doing for 15 years.
A problem dumped on a human, right? To fix.
Yeah.
So I do think, kind of taking further kind of what you talked about, she talks about service operations and service design. And one way you could look at that is if AI comes in and kind of handles a lot of the service operations.
Which is a very ITEL V4 thing to say.
Yeah. Exactly.
Kind of going back to your point of ITEL being, isn't it ITEL from a long time ago?
Yeah, that's right. So I think that, one way you could look at that is that AI is going to free up the operations people so they can do more design and get involved in more upfront stuff. But I really see it more as a merger of those two. And automation, you don't want your operations people just designing automations of how to resolve and fix things, or AI as to how to figure out what the root cause is. Those things really got to be part of the design. You got to, when you're designing a service and designing the rollout of that service, the deployment, the whole life cycle, you got to design the AI, how AI is going to be used, and how you're going to sort of uncover what the real causes or the issues are, and also design how they can be automated from a fixed standpoint. And so I don't see so much that operations people are going to be freed up to focus more on design. I think it's just an integrated feedback loop of sort of a combination of both that needs to be built in from the beginning. So I think that just reinforces just making your point again about automation really being a key part of this. And I'm just stating where automation fits. It's got to be designed from the beginning.
Yeah, and they actually make that point, and I think that's a really key point, is that automation needs to be built from the beginning, right? And you need to be thinking about automation from the point of what you're actually whiteboarding and trying to conceptualize what the service will be. And if you can do that, then you can really get a jump start on how to do the automation, and then start introducing AI that way. Yep. So yeah, I think this was a pretty good, and they talk a lot about end-to-end automation. I'm a big end-to-end automation kind of guy, having started a company that did that, and really kind of looking at what is ultimately the outcome that you're trying to achieve, and how you're going to really look at all the different components that make that up. And I think that's where the ITSM platform can really shine, because when you talk about end-to-end automation, you're really talking about orchestration and automation. And you're talking about being able to grab data from different sources, not just the ITSM platform, but more and more information is going into the ITSM platform. But being able to grab data from these different sources, make logical decisions based on that, move to the next point, grab some more data from different sources, move to the next point, making decisions. AI can play a really key role in using the ITSM platform as that orchestration capability and grabbing all the data and making those decisions and predictive analysis and things like that. So
exactly.
This is a pretty good article, and I think it kind of really lays the foundation of what AI can be doing for ITSM going forward. Right. Any other comments on that?
No, I think the last point I'll make in that article that sort of segues to the next one that I had read was she also talks about natural language processing. So she identified some areas where AI is going to be introduced into the service desk or the service management. And so we talked about most of them. We didn't touch on natural language processing, but I think the next article really drills deeper into that. And this was written by a gentleman, Ganesh Gopalan. He's based out of India. I think he's a CEO of an AI company, and really talks about how conversational AI is really a key part of this and is really going to transform and drive sort of the adoption of virtual agents, of chatbots, and not just in service desks, but just in all kinds of industries. If you're dealing with your insurance or dealing with your, banking, dealing with your car, your kit, I guess, from what Knight Rider car. I mean, all of this has got to become more conversational. And so, he talks about two different options really we stand at. One is more and more services, more and more engagement with customers, more and more kind of seamlessness. You think of how often, I guess I'll ask Sean just to answer the question, in the 90s, how often did you interact with technology? Probably not that often. Right?
In the 90s, no. I mean, gosh, I think I had a bag phone. that was my biggest interaction. I think I had a PowerBook, a Mac PowerBook in the early 90s. So I had a black and white, gray 12-inch Apple PowerBook, and that was about as much of that in my TV.
And so now, I mean, how often do you interact with technology? It's nonstop, right? It's your phone, and it's every device, every interaction, right? You're just constantly in touch with technology, and I think that technology, Siri. I think sometimes on this broadcast, Siri on my laptop is like, "What did you say?" Trying to listen to me. So I think that conversational AI is just pervasive and everywhere. It's going to be more and more that we see today. And I think that the two options are, do you train more humans so that every human is listening to every other human and ready to jump on the spot? Or do you use conversational virtual assistants to really replicate the human interactions, the behavior, speech recognition? And we're seeing with the ITSM tools we use today, that chatbot virtual agent investment is just a huge part of every implementation, every part of this, to get the service requests and get the interactions that are just going to become more and more regular part of people's job, away from having to have a human service desk person interacting. So I don't know if you took a chance to look at this and any thoughts.
I did, and I think that this is I find conversational AI and natural language processing pretty cool stuff. A little bit kind of creepy, and I think that I don't, in my interactions with a lot of online, because I'm still old school, I like to call people, and I like to call, like I was on the phone this morning with a company calling their customer support, and I like talking to a human because I feel like, in 5 minutes we can get through something that, would take me 4 hours of texting back and forth. But so I'm a little old school that I like talking to people. And so I do come across a fair amount of computer-based conversations, and they're getting better. I must say they're much better than they were, say, 5 years ago. But I still think that they still have a long way to go. And to me, it's very obvious. This article kind of talks about it becoming so natural that you don't even know, and having this human. I don't think we're anywhere near that right now. I haven't heard anything that makes me feel like the conversational AI has the right tone or the right empathy and they even talk about emotional intelligence of it. And I'm like, I'm not seeing that, or I'm not experiencing that. That being said, really what it comes down to is this technology is going to happen and needs to happen no matter what, because we just can't get enough people into these companies. Can't hire enough people, so they have a need, right, for more customer care people, customer support, and more. And how do you do it if you can't hire enough people, right? So you're going to have to. And I think the best companies are going to be the ones that really marry the two together, right, and have an upfront experience that allows you to get a lot of information from them, from the AI system, conversational AI, but then immediately kind of turns over to the agent to kind of take that information and maybe have a more human experience. Because I will say that and a lot of this comes down to execution of this, right? And it's like a website. You can go hire a website person. Doesn't necessarily mean that, and they could use all the same technologies in building a website. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a very good website in the end, right? And not very easy to navigate from a customer. And I think I see that in the experience that I have, that there are some cases where it feels very seamless, and the handoff is pretty good. There's sometimes where you like read in your credit card number, and then a human answers, "No, I can have your credit card number." And I'm like, why did I just go through all this, right? Yeah. So the implementation there's probably a fair amount of human emotional intelligence that needs to go into the implementation of this. But the other thing I think is a big factor here is, the pandemic, right? And trends going on already in the world of moving away from physical retailers and physical shopping to online shopping, and then it was accelerated through the pandemic, is just causing a much greater need for online communications, because people are buying online, they want to communicate online, and so the chatbots are key. And I'm seeing chatbots. Everybody's using chatbots now, right? And it's just a matter, again, are they any good? Are they integrated into the back end systems well? Are they taking information and are they transferring them? And I've had some very good chatbot experiences that again, gathered information, transferred me to the account, the customer rep, and I've seen some that are just awful, right? Yeah. So it's and that's just going to grow, right? Because the the online presence of shopping and commerce is just, not going to stop anytime soon.
Yep. Well, I think we're seeing chatbots and virtual agents in general industries like retail, like shopping, banking, auto, like your car, for example, or just other things that is more pervasive because they're naturally human interactions. I think when you're managing IT and managing infrastructure, it's a complex field and complex technology jargon and acronyms and everything else and protocols. How do you make that conversational? And I think back to implementing event management systems, the last 20 years, that the managers would say, all right, we get this event or we see this log and it has I don't know what it means, so we've got to make it meaningful so the operator actually knows what it means. But then when you get a real technical SME, they read the translated alert, right, or incident, the description of it. They're like, well, you eliminated all the meaningful information because I understand the technical jargon, and field 3 has this information that I need to troubleshoot. And so I think when you're dealing with events and IT and all of this technology, then you're translating and correlating that to incidents and then translating that to conversational information people are going to understand. I think that's a bigger challenge in a lot of ways to the IT service management, IT operations management, introducing this to translating that to customers. I think you'll be able to always say, I need to reset my password. I need a laptop. I need more memory. I need whatever. But if you're like, something's broken, what's going on, correlating all this technical stuff to kind of explaining it conversationally is a challenge, I think, and something that they're continuing to work on.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about deploying conversational AI inside of a network operating center or server, some kind of operating center that's internally focused, I actually don't see as much value in that, because I would think that I would be spending more time in the AI for remediation and automation of the events, the incidents as a whole. And because I'm not really sure I would see agents, I'm talking about operators sitting at a desk having a conversation with a computer to resolve some type of web server outage. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But being able to have a internal corporate experience, right, through conversational AI absolutely makes a lot of sense, because you've got to start thinking about your employees as your users. I think one good example that I actually see working really well in conversational AI is, and I'm not really sure this is conversational AI or natural language processing, but when I have an outage on my internet and I call, many times I call and they pick up and they validate me, right? They say, they see my phone number, they validate something, please enter your PIN code or something like that. I enter a PIN code. And then it actually looks into the CRM and the ITSM system, sees that an outage has already been open and is affecting our area, and has a completion date of 10 p.m. Then they come back and say, we are experiencing an outage in your area and the estimated restoration time is 10 p.m. That to me is a really good example and a really good use of this type of technology, because you're now hitting thousands of people who are calling up complaining, and you haven't tied up an operator at all. So kudos to my cable provider for that. Be better if my service never went out, but at least sometimes I get that message. And I've actually had one time I had the company call me and tell me that there was an outage, which I was like, okay, that's kind of cool, because I wasn't even home. So cool. All right, moving on. So you actually turned me on to this, and this was a infographic on the rise of AI in the call center. And normally I focus more on articles, but this infographic was really cool. I really, really like this. And it's done by the EB Call Center, which is, I think, a pretty large call center out in the Philippines. And, we all know Philippines is a pretty big area for call centers. But they talk about all these statistics and these quick stats, and they're really amazing. And, I'll read off one, and I know you have a copy of this and you can read off one. So a report shows that AI-enabled conversational agents are expected to manage 90% of all customer service requests by 2022. And that's sources Zendesk. That's pretty cool. Like that's an amazing statistic, 90%.
Yeah, no, it is. I think it's like we said, we're not hiring humans, right? And I think the one right below that, just to, they report that customer service agents who work with AI have experienced a 69% improvement in their satisfaction working at a contact center. So it isn't just putting the 90% of problems that are handled by virtual agents. It's the customer service agents themselves are actually using the AI. So even when they do need to be part of this, they're they've got that crutch or they got that support behind them. So.
Well, that's really key. That's a huge money saver, right? Because the customer service industry is known for really high churn. And when you're talking about, a 5 to 7% churn per year, you're talking about, turning over your organization about every 5 years, right? And that's a lot of money in training and things like that. So great use case for AI. Going on that, customer improvement, customer or agent satisfaction. Now we'll talk about customer satisfaction. There's about 61% improvement in customer satisfaction in organizations that incorporate AI with human interaction. So customers are happier, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think when we've all been on calls or on the phone with an agent and you can kind of tell they're fumbling around. I think some of them have said, oh, the system's down. I hate this system. And that doesn't give you a lot of, satisfaction or confidence, right? But you can tell when they're like, you're just like, it's amazing. How do they have all this information? How do they have all these insights? How do they have all this right at their fingertips? And, talking to an empowered human with all this information and AI behind them, it does. I can totally see how that increases the satisfaction.
Yeah. Any other statistics that you thought were pretty cool?
I think, he talks about internal enterprises, right? 8 out of 10 businesses have implemented AI as a customer service solution for phone calls. So this is written by a call center that, obviously supports very internal business enterprises, but also external, customer facing B2C type of businesses. But just even within enterprise or businesses themselves, a lot of customer service is being handled already by AI. So, I think that's probably high for a lot of, I think if it's just purely internal IT, but I do think this also, takes into account HR, takes into account some other areas where there's probably some level of AI. So that one's a little, I'm surprised at. I think it's these large call centers that are supporting many, many companies. I would see investing in this versus maybe an internal kind of support desk.
Yeah, I think it depends, one, on how big your organization is, right? And two, access to the technology. So some of the things that they also basically went in this infographic, how AI can innovate the call center industry. And they had, 8 ways of doing that. These were really kind of cool too, because there are things I wasn't really thinking about. So, one is analyzing the tone, right? So having AI running alongside of the human interaction, and then using that AI to analyze the tone of the customer, whether they're frustrated or happy or dissatisfied. Pretty interesting. And then another one is detecting customers' mood. And this actually would be maybe kind of interesting in a sales environment where you've got salespeople reaching out to people, because it says you can actually, again, do kind of mood inference and see if the customers are interested or disinterested. So, if you're talking to a customer about an issue and at the end you try to basically upsell them on something, you can kind of quickly, AI can help you very quickly understand, what the mood is of the customer that you're talking. I think the other thing you can look at is, like they had number 7 was better training, and looking at how we can be doing better training through listening to, going back and using AI as part of the reading, the transcript, and understanding, could we have said this, and helping people, could you have said this better? Could you use a different tone here? Things like that. So very interesting article. At the end, it talks a little bit about how AI supports customer service agents. Some things around chatbots for common inquiries, so that's kind of what we talked about, using chatbots up front for common inquiries, capturing data of customer interactions, and then trying to figure out how to do that, and then using automation for repetitive tasks. So that's about it for today. I think we'll close up on this, and I'm not really sure the topic that we're talking about next week, but again, I wanted to thank our sponsor, Windward Consulting Group, the global leader in AIOps, and you can find Windward at www.windward.com. And with that, I will say thanks a lot, Bill. It was great seeing you this week, and we'll catch up next week and see everybody next week. And take care and have a great week. Bye.
Thank you for joining us in this conversation about AIOps and the future of IT operations. Interested in a deeper dive on these topics? Check out our resources available at AIOpsevolution.com. And remember to subscribe to get the latest episode.